Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Hype and Direct Mail. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right today. You know what? People have to go out and check out MacStoriesMerch.com.
MacStoriesMerch.com.
Yes, not only because it's our first .com ever. I mean, we've graduated to .coms.
Which is a good enough reason in the first place, but yes, not only for that.
Not only for that, but because today, if you're listening to this show today on April 29th when we first publish it, today is the very last day to pick up a Mac Stories t-shirt. So
yes,
go on over and check them out. We got 3 colors. We got men's and women's sizes. They're $30. They really look good, but after today, they're gone. So if you're interested, if you've been putting it off, you've been thinking about it, today's the day to make a decision. Go check them out, MacStoriesMerch.com.
Yes. And the t-shirts, again, last day today. I will leave the Mac Stories pins available for a few more days until we have stock.
Okay.
But then they will also eventually be gone. So the pins will stay until we're out of stock, but then we're going to be out of stock anyway because whatever is left over, I'm going to say this, I will personally buy and give out to a very curated selection of Mac Stories friends in real life. So here's my strategy. You will be able to buy the pins for a few more days, but then whatever is left, I will acquire and I will only give those out in person at WWDC. So
all right,
pick make your move, decide whether you want to buy one now or risk of not getting anything forever.
Or buy a plane ticket to track down Federico.
For a chance of getting one.
For a chance at a $15 pin. You could just spend $15 too and save all that money.
Yes.
So it's really quite a deal, isn't it, Federico?
Yes. So there you go. MacStoriesMerch.com.
So what are we going to talk about today, Federico?
We're going to do a classic App Stories Pick 2 episode. So we have picked 2 different apps. Both start with an M. So that I think that's very interesting. We're going to talk about 2 apps, one each, that we think are interesting or that we've been using lately or that we think are useful or that maybe got a major update. So why don't you go first, John, and tell me all about the app that you've chosen for this episode?
All right. Since they both start with the letter M, I almost feel like we should have started at A and worked our way down here. But, here we are. We're at M. I don't know if that means we're going to go to N next time around or not. Probably not, I would suspect. It seems a little bit of an artificial constraint. But
yes.
But let's go. Let's do our M's today. Today, I want to talk about Moment, which is a pro camera app. And the reason I want to talk about it is because the weather is finally approaching nice in Chicago, and I've been able to leave my house and walk around, and there are flowers and trees, and it's actually getting warm enough and not gray and dark and dingy outside that I can take a lot of pictures. So I've been testing a lot of camera apps, and one of my favorites is Moment. And one of the things I think is kind of cool about Moment is that, they're one of these companies that makes accessories for the iPhone. They make third-party attachment lenses that attach to an iPhone case, so you can, take different kinds of pictures using their lenses with the iPhone. And a lot of times with those kind of apps, there might be, they're the accessories, and there's maybe this companion app that is free or something. And a lot of times those kind of apps are okay, but not necessarily that great. It's totally different with Moment. Moment is one of the best manual camera apps that I've used. And it's not entirely free. It does have a base set of functionality that is entirely free. But the pro features, a lot of which are the things I'm going to talk about today, require an in-app purchase. And they do a really nice job of coupling the app with their lenses. But the thing is, you don't need to use their lenses. If you don't really want to deal with that, it's just not something you're interested in. It has... it works just as well with no lens attached as it does with a lens attached. So don't let the fact that they sell these lenses keep you from using the app, because it's still worth checking out.
Okay. So you don't need to buy the accessories if you just want to use the app.
Right. You don't. You can use either the free app or you can buy the in-app purchase and get more of the pro features.
Okay.
The other thing I like about Moment a lot is they spend a lot of time on their blog putting together YouTube videos that they embed in the blog that give you all sorts of introductory information about shooting raw and things like exposure and white balance. There's a lot of stuff there that is helpful to somebody who's getting started with manual photography. Now, sure, there are tie-ins with the lenses that they make because they are ultimately trying to sell you those too. But there's a lot of information there that you can benefit from regardless, again, of whether you use the lenses or not. Personally, I have been testing some of the lenses and I do enjoy them, and I'll probably be writing about that soon on Mac Stories. But for today, I just want to cover the app. And I guess, there are a lot of manual camera apps, and they tend to have things like adjusting the exposure and the focus and the white balance and the shutter speed and the ISO and all those kind of things. And you'll find that on Moment too. So they have some unique features that in Moment that I think are particularly useful. First of all, if you go in and you change any of the settings, and those are all lined up kind of beneath the viewfinder. If you go in and manually change exposure or ISO or any of those things, you'll see a little indicator right under that particular control. It's a little blue line that shows you that you've manually changed it. So regardless of whether you're in some other setting, you'll see that you've changed it. All you have to do to undo that is double tap the screen. It's a really super simple gesture, but it's a small touch, but it makes it super easy to do that and to reset everything back to normal, or auto, I guess, not necessarily normal. But on top of that, they've got a really cool burst mode. They can create both JPEGs, HEIF files, TIFF files, which there aren't too many camera apps that allow you to make TIFFs, RAW, and then they also have a RAW plus JPEG option, so it's actually capturing two images, one in RAW and one in JPEG, which I kind of like because that's one of those situations where you can keep the RAW one and edit it later when you have some time. But if you take a picture and you're like, well, I'm going to edit this later in Lightroom or something, but I still want to share this right now, it's a lot easier to just take that JPEG and maybe, fiddle with it a little bit in Instagram and shoot it up to Instagram right away and then go back to your RAW file later. So that's a nice option to have. The other thing about Moment is that it's also a video camera, and not all of these manual camera apps also do video. And Moment does a really good job because it has both H.264 and HEVC file formats supported, as well as all kinds different bit rates. It can do 1080p, 720, or 4K. It's got all kinds of different frame rates as well, everything from 24, 30, 48, and 60. It supports NTSC and PAL, PAL's Europe, right?
Yes, Europe and Australia.
So it's got a lot of pro-level features, plus it's got these histograms that it will overlay on the video, and it does a similar thing when you're taking photos that shows the RGB color space and how much of red, green, and blue are in that image, or you can switch it to these waveforms. It gives you an idea of brightness in different parts of the image. It's pretty amazing what it can do with that stuff. And it also captures the audio, of course, and shows you your levels while you're recording. So there's just an extraordinary amount in the app, and I find that it's really helpful to kind of think about what kind of photos you want to take or what kind of video project you want to take on, and then go check out some of their videos, figure out, that on the Moment site, it's shopmoment.com, I believe. Check it out, learn a little bit, work your way through the settings, and then go out and do it. And that's what I've been doing lately. It's been really useful. They've got a couple of Siri shortcuts in there too that they have. I mean, there's one for taking a picture and another one for taking the video. I think it'd be nice if they kind of expanded that a little, because I think Halide has done a little bit of that, where you can shift between modes in Halide with, you can switch to selfie mode and to reviewer mode with Siri shortcuts, but all you can really do is start taking a picture or a video with shortcuts in Moment. But right. It's a start, and it's for an app that is also cross-platform and that they also have an Android version. It does a really good job of supporting a lot of the things that are available in iOS. So overall, I've been really happy with it. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Hype Professional. With Hype Professional, you can create stunning animated and interactive HTML5 content. What's fantastic about Hype is that you can build your animations without writing any code. The app uses a powerful keyframe-based animation system with an easy-to-use record button. The thing that's amazing about Hype Professional is that under the hood of that simple UI, it's loaded with power. For example, the app features an advanced interactivity system that can trigger symbols and multiple timelines, and when you're finished, Hype outputs state-of-the-art HTML5 and CSS3 driven by JavaScript. Those exports are compatible with everything from IE6 to the latest Chrome, iOS, and Android browsers. If there's an effect that won't work, Hype will warn you too, so you're never caught off guard. Of course, Hype also supports responsive and flexible designs to accommodate all sizes and shapes of device layouts. Here's the thing. The web is a visual medium, which is why Hype provides a great what you see is what you get visual environment using the same engine that powers Safari. It eliminates the guesswork, letting you see exactly what the visitors to your site will see. There's a lot of uses for Hype. It's the best way to build ads for the web. Its animations have a small export footprint, and it supports a bunch of popular ad systems. It's also super useful for things like infographics, ads, site hero banners, animated lessons, web interactive experiences, books, and a whole lot more. On top of that, Hype works on Mac OS from versions 10.8 through 10.14. I've got a fantastic deal on Hype just for our listeners too. Visit tumult.com/appstories and use the coupon code appstories to get 20% off Hype Professional. That's TUMULT.com/appstories and the coupon code appstories for 20% off Hype Professional. It's a terrific deal. So head on over to tumult.com/appstories today to get started making beautiful HTML5 interactive pieces and animations and enjoy that limited time 20% discount. I'll put a link in the show notes too. Our thanks to Hype for their support of App Stories.
So let me ask you, how are you using this app? Like what kind of pictures, what kind of videos are you using this app for?
So because I've been testing these various lenses, I've been going out on walks around the town I live in, and I've been using, for instance, their wide camera angle, which is really good in the city. I used it when I was in Ireland recently in Dublin because you could capture a lot more of what was around you in kind of a tight space, like a narrow street or something. Really good for urban photography. I've been trying out their anamorphic camera lens, which takes incredibly wide video.
So anamorphic means wide.
Yeah, basically.
That's a term that I see every once in a while, and like sometimes I think sometimes people just use these terms, but they don't know what they mean. You know, because it sounds fancy, right? To say it's anamorphic. I don't know what it means.
Yes,
so it means wide.
Yes, that is the term of art. And what it is it's a rectangular lens that sits in the case, right up against the iPhone's lens. It's rectangular, but it has a really wide curve to it that lets it take this wide shot. And if you just saved that as is, you would get this weird squished looking video where everything was really skinny because it doesn't really fit within the way. This is where you can tell this isn't the technical side of this. I'm not familiar with, other than it would look really squished, and in software you can de-squish it, so it just becomes a really wide video with letterboxing on the top and bottom.
That I understand when you say squishing and de-squishing. That makes sense to me.
Right, and they call it de-squeezing is the term. The term that they call it de-squeezing, and it really is right, because you would look really skinny. You'd lose 50 pounds when you took a video of you with an anamorphic lens, but then you de-squeeze it and it ends up being like more normal and wide. So that's the kind of stuff I've been using it with. Now, it is different if you're using the lenses, because one of the things you have to remember when you're using the lenses, they actually have settings in the app that are designed for those particular lenses. So you actually switch to the lens you're using, because the iPhone, since this is just a lens that's attached to a case, the iPhone has no idea that it's looking through another lens. So you have to manually set the lens in the app, and then it does some, software magic to make it particularly useful with that lens, I guess. It's most noticeable in the anamorphic lens, but not so much on the other ones. But yeah, that's how it works, and I've been using it just as I would
Hmm.
any other. I would use the iPhone normally. When I'm using the add-on lenses, though, it's more of a deliberate choice to go out and take photos with a particular lens or two,
Okay.
because you do have to use a specific case, bring the lenses with you.
It's a whole
You,
thing.
it's a whole thing. Use the app, switch to the lens. It's more of
Mm.
a production, and it's not the kind of thing I would suggest doing when you're just out shooting pictures, and kind of like if you're just having a day out and you want to take a couple of pictures while you're out. I wouldn't suggest for that. But in that case, you can still use the app just with no lens setting attached.
Right.
And, it has plenty of useful settings for that situation too.
So will you be using these either with or without the lenses at WWDC?
Probably without, because it is a little
Okay.
bit of a production. Like if I'm because at WWC we're always running around doing things. We've got a lot of things that are going on at any particular time, and it's a little bit of a you have to have a pocket full of $100 lenses that you have to keep track of on top of your phone. So I don't know that I'll use them at WWC, but I do use them when I'm thinking of just it's a particularly nice day and I just want to go get some nice photos. So yeah, that's more when that's the focus of my day or my trip or project, then yeah, that's when I'll use the lenses. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Direct Mail. Direct Mail is an easy-to-use email marketing app designed exclusively for the Mac to help you create and send great-looking email newsletters. Email marketing is still an incredibly cost-effective way to reach your customers and grow your business. And for the past 15 years, Mac users around the world have trusted the Direct Mail app to handle all of their email marketing needs. It's designed just for the Mac, which means it's fast, easy to use, and works great with the other apps and services you already use. With Direct Mail, you can quickly and easily compose high-quality email that looks great on mobile and desktop. When you use Direct Mail, you get in-depth campaign reports too that show you who is reading, clicking, and sharing your newsletters, which is incredibly valuable information. Direct Mail also helps you grow your mailing list by creating email sign-up forms that you can add to your website or Facebook page. That's just the tip of the iceberg. This app can do so much more too. Direct Mail also has real human live chat customer support available to answer your questions, which is absolutely terrific. There's no wonder Direct Mail is the #1 top-rated email marketing app for the Mac, with 5-star reviews on the App Store, GetApp, and elsewhere, and it's trusted by small businesses, nonprofits, schools, and Fortune 500 companies alike. Direct Mail is free to download to get started, and listeners of this show can save 10% off all full feature pricing plans. So head over to directmailmac.com/appstories to take advantage of that free download and check it out. Again, that's directmailmac.com/appstories to get 10% off when you opt for a full feature plan. Our thanks to Direct Mail for their support of App Stories.
I want to talk about MindNode, which has been updated to version 6. We have a review of the new version on Mac Stories.
Yep.
Ryan worked on the review because I'm busy working on this special story, hopefully for the very near future. And this story is being outlined in MindNode, in fact, which tells you what you need to know about the fact that why am I using MindNode? Because for the past 5 years, I've been a huge proponent of iThoughts, which is the other popular mind mapping app on iOS. And I've used iThoughts I've counted all the iOS reviews that I've done. It's 4 of them, starting with iOS 9 up until iOS 12. I've used MindNode for the iOS reviews, which are, the biggest stories that I work on. But now I'm using MindNode. So before I talk about the changes in version 6 and sort of why I like MindNode now, I wanted to give you a quick rundown of why I was using iThoughts before, if that's okay. I think we mentioned this before, but it's okay to, I think it's useful to offer that context again.
I think it is, yeah.
So I like my mind maps in a very specific way. They have to use the San Francisco font. They have to use a rainbow color scheme. so multiple colors for each topic, for each branch of the map. And they have to use the angular shape style. So straight lines, angular lines, and topics, so nodes contained in rectangles. So everything precise, everything very sort of neutral and clean and sort of a wireframey kind of look.
Yep.
And for years, I preferred iThoughts because it was the only app that made this possible. Either, I think the rainbow color scheme was available in iThoughts. MindNode didn't have the ability to design your own theme, which is now possible. But especially was what sealed the deal for me was how iThoughts allowed me to customize my theme, my custom style, so that the font size would decrease the more the mind map advanced in a nested structure. So, for example, the node on level 1 would have a big font, which was also bold, and that was going to be the title of the topic. And then level 2 nodes would have a slightly smaller and non-bold font. Level 3 would have it be even smaller. Level 4 would maybe be even smaller and italic. So iThoughts has a way to define these styles and to say, make this style, make the font smaller the more you go deep into the nested structure of a branch, and apply this style to the entire map. Now, for years, I resisted switching to MindNode because it didn't offer this feature. And MindNode 6 still does not have this functionality. So when you create a map in MindNode, it does not automatically decrease the font size of your nodes the more that you go deep into the levels of each branch. So level 3 will have the same font size of level 1 by default. It is not possible to say, use this font size for nodes on the same level and apply that automatically to the entire map going forward, because it'll lose your preference if you do that. You can apply a custom size to all nodes on the same level, but it will not stick. So the moment that you create a new node 3 item in MindNode, it'll have a big font again. Now, for years, I didn't use MindNode because I thought, this is a deal breaker for me. I need to be able to have fonts that get smaller. Then two things happened. One, my eyesight got worse. And so I'm using small fonts less and less these days. But more importantly, I think MindNode got so much better and it gained so many more features than iThoughts that I'm actually interested in, that it sort of tipped the balance for me. And so when I got the beta of version 6 a few weeks ago, I was like, all these things that they've done, I think they are more important for me than the font sizes that get automatically smaller. So MindNode 6. So version 5, which actually came out last year, I think introduced the document browser. So MindNode launches, and the initial view that you see is the files view. So you can create mind maps anywhere. You can use iCloud Drive, of course, which is what I use, but you can also use other locations, other folders, whatever you want. MindNode is one of the best implementations of the document browser alongside PDF Viewer, because MindNode injects its own custom controls into the document browser's UI. One of them is versions. So, for example, you can browse iCloud versions of your mind maps from the document browser. It'll open this special pop-up window, and you will be able to browse and restore an older version of a map. And iCloud versions is in fact an existing API of iCloud, but Apple itself is not using versions on iOS for some reason. So third-party developers are using them, but Apple is not. So props to MindNode for using an actual feature of iOS that Apple itself is not using. So all of these are features that were pre-existing in MindNode 5, the document browser, versions. The app has also had an excellent outline mode that allows you to view your mind map, not as a map, but as an outline. So as a vertical list of topics with indented subtopics and all of that. So these three features existed before. I was intrigued by them, but as I mentioned, I kept saying, no, I'm going to stick with iThoughts. Then version 6 happened and I got the beta, and there's a few things in version 6 that I want to highlight because they convinced me to try this app. The first one is the app has a new dedicated mode for external displays. You know that I've been using the iPad Pro connected to the ultrafine 4K display that I have via USB-C. I wrote about this on Mac Stories in December, I think, with the many setups of the iPad Pro article that I published. And it's beautiful in that MindNode now shows you, it doesn't mirror the screen of the iPad to the external display. It actually uses the full size of the display, the full canvas of the display to show you your entire map. But just that, it just shows you the map. It doesn't mirror the interface of the app. It just shows you the content. And what's even better about this is that it comes with a menu where you can lock the viewport of the external display. And what this means is you can effectively keep two differently zoomed versions of the same map on an external display and on the iPad Pro. So on an external display, for example, I can zoom in on a topic, lock the viewport, and then even if I pinch to zoom in and out on the iPad, or even if I scroll the map to another location of the map on the iPad, it'll not change what's on the external display. And this to me has been a great way to keep a topic pinned on the external display and then control the rest of the map and the rest of the app on the iPad.
Give me an example of when you would do that. Is that so that you maybe you're working on a different section of your mind map and you want to refer back to a second one? Is that when you use it?
Yeah, exactly. For example, so one of these sections will be file management of this story. And I was keeping that section zoomed in on the external display while working on a different section of the map that I needed to refer to the file management one to make sure that I would not repeat myself in terms of topics and app examples that I will bring up in this story.
Oh, all right.
So it's a way to keep two, sort of to have a split view, but the split is actually the iPad and an external display, if that makes sense.
Right.
What's unfortunate is that due to current limitations of iOS right now, if you put MindNode in split view, so on the iPad, let's say you have Safari and MindNode, the split view, so the fact that you have two apps on the iPad will override the external display mode of MindNode, and you will see the mirrored iOS interface on the external display. Okay. So you will see the split view. You will see Safari and MindNode on the external display as well, because it is not possible for third-party developers to say, even if the user engages split view and puts another app next to this app, we still want to be able to control the display, and you don't have that kind of control yourself at a system level. So ideally in the future, that should be a thing.
Yeah, that's too bad, because another use case I could see is, wouldn't it be cool if you could have your mind map up on your big screen, but be typing in IA Writer on your iPad, right?
Yes.
So it's always there. You can see the whole layout, but you're actually typing what you're working on. Yeah, that would be kind of cool too.
Wouldn't that be nice? So anyway, this is already great. The other feature that is kind of related to this is focus mode, which allows you to sort of focus on a single topic, and doing so will zoom in on a topic of the map and it'll dim the rest. So it's a nice way to zero in on a specific section of the map, sort of hide whatever surrounds it, so that you can focus more on a topic. And I've been doing this to work on this story section by section, chapter by chapter, so that it's easy for me to concentrate and to just look at one part of the map. Multiple selections and drag and drop. Drag and drop is existed before. Multiple selections is new. So there's two ways to select multiple items on a map. You can either hold down your finger and drag to create a rectangular selection tool, like on macOS, like in the Finder. Also, iThoughts has this same feature, I think. Or you can hold down with one finger on the background of the map And then you can use another finger to tap and tap and tap multiple topics until you select them all at the same time. So 2 different ways to do multiple selections. I like the macOS-like selection method.
Yep.
I think it works really well with touch as well. 2 notes on drag and drop. As I mentioned, it existed before. You can drag text, images, and links inside of MindNode. It works really well for images in that if you have an image that you're dragging on the iPad, you can drop it on top of a node and it'll become an attachment to that node, which is great. But the same is not true for links. And I would like it to be true for links as well, because iThoughts has this feature that if you're holding a link, you can drop it on top of a node and it'll become a quote unquote link attachment to that node. In MindNode, instead, a link can only exist as its own node. So you need to create an empty child node.
Oh, I see.
And
then
drop it in while the cursor is shown inside of the node. So
I see. Yeah.
it's not an attachment like in iThoughts, and I would like it to be an attachment.
Right.
But what is nice is when you tap links, they actually open in Safari View Controller. So that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Excellent keyboard shortcuts in this version. In this update has extended what you can do with the keyboard in MindNode. You can navigate across nodes using the arrow keys. And I love that there's an option period shortcut to fold and unfold nodes and branches. So that's really, really, really great. And I think I should mention also stickers. You can search stickers. Stickers are a way to visually mark up topics by adding a colorful sort of emoji-like sticker to it. So for example, I have a automation chapter that has a gear sticker. And now to make it easier to find the stickers, you can search for them, which is a nice touch. And finally, I want to mention how MindNode is sort of ahead of the curve in terms of what may potentially be the future of iOS, of the iPad's interface. It makes heavy use of panels to show you controls in a floating sort of manner. And these panels could be resized before, so you can make the panel bigger, taller, or smaller and more compact with touch. But now you can also move them across the screen. So you can, put the inspector on the right and the outline on the left. You can close the outline. You can customize the actions shown in the inspector panel. It's very nice, and I think it's a sort of a trying to predict where the iPad's UI may be going in iOS 13, but I guess we'll see. So I guess you're wondering, will I be using MindNode for my iOS 13 review? The answer is yes.
All right. Interesting. It's funny to listen to you talk about this because you know that I've been using MindNode for longer than you have. I've been using it on and off for a couple of years, and we've talked about it before. And I like iThoughts a lot too. I think they're both excellent apps. And I always enjoyed MindNode for, in a way, the simplicity of it. It's still, there's a lot of power under the hood, but I really do like their default templates and things that allow me to make something that looks nice without trying, because I always worry that when I do something like mind mapping that I'll get bogged down in formatting, the thickness of the lines and the typography and the colors and all that stuff. And I always appreciated MindNode's templates for that reason alone. But I also recognize that given some of the things you were doing for your iOS reviews, there were very particular requirements you had that just weren't really being satisfied by MindNode. But it sounds like what's been added is either address those or are new things that are that much better enough that it kind of overcomes the things that bothered you in the past.
Yeah, I agree. That's the case. So
all right, cool.
I will be using this starting in June for if it's called iOS 13, then my iOS 13 review. So we'll see how it goes.
I think I've got 3 different MindNode maps going right now, 2 for different series of articles that I'm thinking of doing, as well as macOS for over the summer. So yeah, it's a great way to organize bigger projects, I think. Okay, Federico, I think that's a good place to stop for today. I want to thank our 2 sponsors again. That's Hype and Direct Mail. And of course, you can find me and Federico over at macstories.net, where Federico is our editor-in-chief. And you can find both of us both on Twitter and on Instagram. In both places, we are John Voorhees, JohnVoorHWS, and Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. I'll talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.